The word meditation is used in so many ways to imply so many things, so many methods, techniques, all go under the name of meditation. But the essence of meditation is to recognize the truth of our own being, and that recognition is not through knowledge, not through memory, but through direct perception. So when we have any goal which is associated with memory, then that comes in the way of meditation. So this is why when we sit in meditation, there are various thoughts coming, and all the thoughts are associated with memories. And all these various memories come, and it seems to be that in many cases there is some sort of a struggle to control the thoughts, to still the thoughts, and so on. And then the very goal that I have to still my thoughts becomes another memory which causes further struggle. So there is always division because of this process. We have division between thoughts. There is one thought, let's say, that is about something that happened yesterday. There is another thought about something that might happen tomorrow. And then there is a thought that I have to now be free of thoughts. And therefore, there is the identity of the meditator who wants to be still. And then there is the thoughts which are associated with other identities that are coming, and there is a struggle between them. So if we look at this very carefully, and that is self-inquiry, then we can go into this stillness simply by looking very carefully, and that very looking is meditation. And it can be done in silence, or it can be also done through listening. It can be done through observing. So when we listen, when we observe too, if we listen with full attention, if we speak with full attention, then through the very speaking, listening, observing, also one can enter into that meditative state of stillness. So for that, we have to carefully look at what is causing this struggle. And we can see that all these thoughts are coming because there are various motives associated with various identities. No thought arises free of some notion of a thinker, which is the identity associated with the thought. And there is so many identities that are floating in our consciousness. There is the identity of the one associated with one's family, whether it be father or mother or spouse or all that. There is the identity of career, work, colleagues. There is the identity of being a friend. There is the identity of being part of a particular nation and therefore thoughts on that nation's politics or culture come. There is the identity of being a fan of, let's say, a particular personality, or whether it be music or sports or whatever people fancy, and then thoughts associated with that. And then among all this, there is also when one recognizes that all these thoughts are coming out of these identities, which are all coming and going, then there is the thought that I have to be free of all these thoughts. And that is picked up from, let's say, reading a book or listening to a teaching. And then that also becomes another subtle identity of I am now spiritual and I have to be free of material identities. So we have all these identities floating within us, and every identity has its own motive. As soon as there is an identity, there is a motive, some kind of motive about the perception of that identity, and therefore either regrets about what happened in the past or expectation about what will happen in the future, speculation about it, and an interest in discussing it, and all the rest. And the same thing happens even with the spiritual identity, that there is a projection that I will be enlightened, or whatever one word one projects. So all of these are floating around in us. So if we now look at the whole thing without any resistance, without any judgment, we don't have to say this is right, this is wrong, this is something that I should further, this is something that I should get rid of. All of these are coming from, again, a standpoint of a particular identity. If I condemn an identity, that condemnation is happening from another identity. If, let's say, I have an attachment to something, and then there is another identity that says I have to be free of attachment, then there is a struggle between those two identities, and one identity is condemning the other identity, and thereby there is an internal division. And this is what happens in meditation a lot, where there is a struggle between two different identities, the controller and the controlled. There is the thought which wants to be controller, which says I have to keep still. And there is another thought which is the controlled, which is the thought associated with, let's say, something mundane. But the fact is, the controller and the controlled are both thoughts. And if we identify with the controller and divide against the controlled, we are still caught in the divisive identity of thought. So the most important recognition, therefore, is to not condemn any thought, any identity whatsoever. If we simply observe, that is why observing is meditation, studying is another word, inquiring, all of these are same thing. If we simply observe all of these as just different characters floating on the screen of consciousness. We have the character that is the father, we have the character that is, let's say, interested in politics, and we have a different character interested in work, and then we have a character that says, I have to be spiritual. That's also a character. And the one that says, I have to now control thoughts, free of thoughts, and all the rest. If we look at the whole map without any judgment, without any ranking, it's recognizing that all of these are just thoughts and identities associated with thoughts built through memory. There is nothing great about memory except that it is useful for transactional reasons. We can talk using language, we can use devices, we can engage with technology, we can do the day to day activities of life, cooking, all of that needs memory. But beyond that, there is nothing sacred about memory. Memory is just a utilitarian thing. So, whatever memory there is, including memory of the greatest wisdom one has received, is just memory. It cannot touch the living truth of this moment. If we identify with that memory, then we are caught in that cloud which covers the illumination or the sun of this truth shining right now. So when we therefore look at every identity simply as is, as just an expression of past memories that have formed these identities, then there is instantly a stillness. We can see it right now. We can see all the memories that are there and all the identities that are there and all the goals that are there. And the observation of all of this is free of all those goals. So I can observe the goal of different identities without any ranking, without saying that this is better, that is worse, this is right, this is wrong. Because when I do that, instantly I get caught into another identity, because only from the standpoint of identity or memory can we do ranking. Can we say this is right, this is wrong? So if we, the highest pointer of self-inquiry is that every memory, every identity is simply a fleeting expression within consciousness. It doesn't matter what it is. And therefore, pure consciousness is free of even the most sacred memory. It doesn't matter. So if we simply, therefore, look at the whole map of our consciousness and whatever is floating within it without any judgment, as we said, then instantly there is the whole vision. And in that, there is the decoupling from all of them as I. Because now I am not identified with any identity, but simply watching everything. And that sense of pure observation, or we can call witness, or whatever term one uses, is the pure sense of I am, that which is not accumulated through memory. just something that is present, and that presence is effortlessly watching the whole map of consciousness. And when we do that, then there is stillness uninvited. It comes on its own. We don't have to then chase stillness, because chasing stillness is another identity and it never happens. So to be still is therefore not an imperative, but it is just something that comes on its own when we are free of even the goal of being still. So when we therefore look at everything with clarity, without any judgment, just the whole thing as it is, then all the little me's that are there, they are all simply seen without any judgment from this perception, and that can be called as the pure sense of being. We don't have to even name it, and we don't have to conceptualize it. We don't have to then even use words to describe it. It is simply the stillness that is there, that is completely unaffected by any of these identities. And then when that pure watching happens, in that pure watching, these identities don't have a place to stand, and therefore they dissolve on their own. And then there is no identities to watch even. There is only the stillness. So we can therefore begin with wherever we are and arrive at this stillness. Any moment is therefore a portal into stillness. So we don't have to then look into any particular moment as more favorable or less favorable, or similarly, we don't have to start with any goal in mind. We don't have to then read any books about it, because all the truly wise books and the great sages have only pointed to this one pointer, that you are already what you're looking for. So, to truly revere the great sage is to find the essence of the sage within, to not externalize it, because that again becomes another identity where there is the division between master and disciple. And that division of master and disciple is another identity that is being carried forward, through which we are not recognizing our true essence. So, if we truly revere the teaching, then we have to let go of all identities, including the most pious, let go of all scriptures, let go of all knowledge that we have collected through memory. And if we let go of everything by seeing that they are all just identities, we don't have to therefore try to forget them or try to renounce them or anything of that nature. We just see that they are all identities, they are all memories. And the one who is seeing them is always free. So, even the most profound wisdom or the most mundane piece of knowledge is all seen in the light of the same essence. And that light is untouched by either of them. And that light is the very watching that doesn't identify with any identity of any kind. So when we therefore take any thought that comes, so in this moment, let's say there is any thought, every single thought is a portal into our own being. If there is a thought of anger, even great anger towards someone, and if we look at that thought and we say that this anger is there, and this anger is there because of a certain identity that is built over memory, that identity is being challenged or resisted, and there is a response of anger. And if you watch this clearly, without identifying with the anger or the identity that is having anger, but without condemning it either, that this is wrong, because when we say this is wrong, that is again coming from another memory that says I should not be angry, which is another identity. Then we will fall back into the same trap. So without identifying or condemning, if we just simply watch it, that there is this identity, and that identity has been upset through something, and there is anger. That's it. That very watching is free of the anger. That very observation is completely free. So, this way, any thought that rises, anger is just an example, any thought that rises can be traced back, and one can be in pure observation. So, if we look at, for example, any picture, there are so many different characters, let's say in a picture, or let's say even in a movie. If we don't identify with any of the characters, we watch the whole screen, then instantly there is the watching, and there is no charge to the watching, there is no emotional investment in the watching. That happens only when we identify with the character. Even when we watch something on a screen, only when we identify with a particular character, we make likes and dislikes. And the same process is what we do internally. We identify and we rank, and we like some characters, don't like some characters, all within us. And then we set about in this struggle, which is never ending. But if we take a step back and look at the whole thing as all just characters playing on the screen of consciousness, and that watching is inherently therefore free. So we just have to very alertly watch and not fall into the trap of condemnation, and on the other side liking something, and so on. If we have this clarity that every memory associated with every identity is simply a fleeting expression that comes and goes. Even if one has studied all the scriptures and memorized all of them, that book knowledge is again another memory. And that is not the same as the true essence those books are pointing to. So, if we really, therefore, put everything in the right perspective, and thereby see that all identities associated with all memories are all just there, then that which is watching all of them is still. And that stillness is therefore, we can even say, effortless. Effortless not in the sense of being lazy about it, but effortless in the sense of not struggling. Because when there is effort in that sense of struggle, it never seems to reveal itself. And we get caught in million questions and various different ideas. And then suddenly one idea is appealing, then another idea is appealing, because all of these are just different identities constantly switching around. But if we, in this way, clearly inquire and free of all these identities, just watch them, then there is stillness. And that stillness is always there, but unrecognized because we are caught in specific characters. So if we, when we sit in meditation daily, or even when we are engaging in activities, when listening, if you are, for example, listening without any judgment, without any like or dislike, and just listening, then that's happening on the screen of consciousness without any identity being triggered. Same can happen with working. One can engage in making one's meal or working on a computer, just working. And sometimes in work, it happens, in fact, more naturally if one is engaged in work fully. Then there is just a work and there is no identity rising during the work. But many times after the work, the memory will come to claim that it is my work and feel good about it, and so on. So all of these are again various ways in which the me comes up. So through the day, that's why meditation is not just an activity that can happen for a certain amount of time in the morning or evening, but through the day, if we keep this alert watching, then by and by these identities don't have a hold, and they simply provisionally may rise and fall, but they don't have any hold, and there can be this ground of stillness. But when there's identities rising due to some triggers or some strong memories, then it takes only greater alertness to just see them without any condemnation and just look at all the other identities that are there and just not be caught in any of them, and look at the whole ground. And if we are able to thereby be alert in this way, and that's why being alert is one form of, we can say, effort. In that way, that is the effort. But it is not effort in the form of struggle by saying, I have to be still, I have to control thoughts, I have to be not angry, I have to be peaceful. All of these statements are all causing struggle, because that I, which says all of this, is again simply another identity. So when we are free of all these, I have to, I should be, I must, when these statements that are all rising from acquired identities, again memories, are all seen simply as that and not therefore caught in that struggle between one identity and another identity, then there is no struggle. There is only the effort of vigilance and alertness. And when we are alert and vigilant, there is pure observation. And this pure observation brings forth stillness on its own, not as a goal to be achieved, but as something that descends when there is pure watching.